I never imagined my life beginning with something so small, yet so monumental. Just me, standing in front of a camera, the bright studio lights reflecting softly off the polished floor, a gentle smile I hadn't practiced at all. The photographer whispered to relax, to feel something happy, to imagine a moment that mattered. So I closed my eyes for a heartbeat, thought of something simple, and then smiled. I didn't think about fame. I didn't think about recognition. I only thought about being honest in that moment, being myself without pretending. The lace of my dress brushed against my arms lightly, and the bouquet of tiny white flowers I held felt almost too delicate for me. I remember wondering if I could keep them alive, if they would bloom as naturally as I hoped my smile would. At 22, I was new to the industry, new to the idea of being watched, and new to the knowledge that someone could care about the way I looked, the way I carried myself, the way my eyes moved. I had spent my life quietly learning, dreaming, practicing small steps toward a life I barely understood. Acting seemed like a distant goal, something I would slowly grow into, and yet here I was, suddenly in a room where everyone's gaze was on me, and every little movement felt amplified. I tried not to think about the future. I tried not to imagine what it meant if someone noticed me. All I could do was breathe slowly, keep my hands from shaking, and let the camera catch what it wanted, a girl who wasn't pretending, who was unaware of her own magnetism. Little did I know, that single smile would travel farther than I had ever imagined. I didn't notice the subtle shifts in the room. I didn't notice how the photographer's lens lingered a fraction longer, as if it had found something rare. And I certainly didn't notice that this was only the first moment where my life began to change, softly, inexorably, without asking me for permission. By the next morning, the advertisement was everywhere. I woke to messages pouring in, hundreds of notifications, likes, comments, articles from strangers praising a face I hardly recognized as mine. People called me fresh, pure, innocent, the girl with the smile that could light up a room. Every word felt strange and almost alien, because I had only smiled the way I always did, unaware that the world would take notice. The sensation was overwhelming. I walked down the streets, and people turned to look at me. Cafes, buses, even street corners seemed to hum with attention. Cameras flashed as I passed, and I realized that my life had become something different. Something impossible to ignore. I felt a strange mixture of excitement and terror. Excitement because someone, somewhere, appreciated me for being myself. Terror because I had no control over this. The city, which had once felt familiar and comfortable, now seemed impossibly vast. Everyone had opinions. Everyone had expectations. I could hear their thoughts before they spoke them aloud. I could imagine the whispers, the comparisons, the judgments. And still, I kept walking, keeping my gaze low, pretending that it didn't matter to me. At night, I lay awake in my small apartment, scrolling through articles I didn't want to read. Each headline praised me. Each comment dissected me. And each one reminded me that this was no longer just me, I had become a reflection of the expectations of others. I was learning, fast, that fame demanded more than skill or talent. It demanded composure, strategy, and the ability to smile even when you were scared. I didn't know if I was ready. I wondered if anyone ever truly was. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a tiny voice whispered that the hardest part was yet to come, that the journey I had stumbled into had far more layers than an advertisement could ever show.
Yet on that day, someone showed him the advertisement that had gone viral. At first, he looked casually, scrolling past like he did with everything else. Then he paused, and then he looked again. Not because of my fame, not because of beauty, which he had seen countless times, but because of something in my expression, something untrained, uncalculated, and undeniably real. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He simply watched, his sharp eyes following the curve of my smile, the way I held the flowers, the way I seemed unaware of the lens's scrutiny. In that moment, I didn't exist for him as an actress or a face. I existed as a presence. And for a man like Jackson, that was rare. I didn't know it at the time, of course. I had no idea that somewhere across the city, a man who could have anyone, who had everything, had already decided that he wanted me. I only knew that my life was changing, in ways I couldn't yet comprehend, and that my quiet smile had unknowingly reached someone who never missed a detail. A few days later, the industry moved faster than I could comprehend. News of a new television series circulated through every gossip column, every online forum, and every agency email. I only knew one thing. The male lead had been confirmed. And the name echoed in every conversation. Jackson. Jackson, the man who had watched me without a word, who had never once expressed interest in anyone unless it served him. Jackson, whose choices were precise, calculated, and always perfect. And now, suddenly, the world whispered that he had made a choice that involved me. The production office was chaotic. Assistants rushed, phones rang incessantly, and every team member seemed caught in a whirlwind of panic and excitement. Jackson's manager was calm as always, sitting behind his polished desk, reviewing the contract with a deliberate composure that unnerved everyone. And then Jackson spoke. "I will only do this project if Hailey is the female lead," he said. His voice was firm, calm, absolute. Not a question. Not a suggestion. A condition. The room froze. Every head turned, every eye widened. Staff members murmured to each other. Some gasped. Others whispered that it was impossible. How could someone like Jackson risk a project on an untested actress? How could he demand something so bold? I had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. I only knew that my name had entered a conversation I never expected to be part of. My agency buzzed with urgency, my manager pacing and negotiating, assuring the directors that I could handle the role. They spoke about schedules, contracts, risks, but through it all, one thought kept repeating in my mind: why me? Why would someone like Jackson, someone untouchable, untarnished by mistakes, ask for me personally? And still, as they discussed, I imagined him standing tall in a conference room, his gaze steady, not flinching under pressure. His confidence wasn't arrogance, it was certainty. The certainty that I had no clue I carried yet. And in that certainty, I realized something that made my heart pound in fear and excitement at the same time. This wasn't just a role. This was someone choosing me.
The next day, I was called into my agency for a meeting that felt unreal. I had expected congratulatory smiles, maybe a brief announcement about some new project. Instead, I was ushered into a quiet room with my manager sitting across from me, a mixture of pride and caution in her eyes. "You've been requested for a new television series," she said. "Jackson specifically asked for you as the female lead." I froze. Jackson. The name carried weight that made my chest tighten. I remembered the first time I had seen him, calm, composed, observing me without judgment. Now he wanted me for a series that could define my career. I didn't feel proud. I felt unworthy. My hand shook slightly, the bouquet I had imagined holding during my first photo shoot feeling almost real in my mind. Why me? I wondered again, staring at the polished floor. Was I ready for this? Could I stand beside someone like Jackson without faltering? Over the next few hours, I prepared for the audition. I read lines I barely understood, practiced expressions I hadn't mastered, and rehearsed gestures that felt unnatural. Every step felt amplified, as if everyone in the city was silently judging me. My manager reassured me, but I couldn't escape the inner doubt. And yet, a small voice whispered, maybe he saw something in me I couldn't see. Maybe this wasn't just luck. Maybe this was the beginning of something I had no right to imagine yet, but something that mattered. I arrived at the studio, my heart racing, every nerve alert. Cameras, lights, the faint scent of makeup and warm coffee, it all swirled around me. And then I saw him. Jackson. Watching silently from the side, his expression unreadable, yet something in his eyes made me feel seen. Not judged, not impressed, just seen. It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. The audition itself was quiet. No distractions. No fanfare. Just me and a script, a camera, and the sense that everything I had done up to this moment had led here. I spoke, acted, moved, imperfectly, nervously, but honestly. Every line was a little piece of me, and for the first time, I realized that honesty mattered more than perfection. Outside the room, Jackson watched. Not smiling. Not whispering advice. Just observing. And somehow, that quiet attention made me stronger, steadier, even as my pulse raced. Hours later, my phone buzzed with a message from my manager. I froze, unsure if I wanted to read it, unsure if I was ready to face the reality. But curiosity and hope overcame fear. I opened the message. "You got the role," it read. I didn't scream. I didn't jump. I simply stood there, feeling a rush of emotions I couldn't name. Pride, relief, fear, excitement, and above all, a strange, quiet realization. I wasn't just chosen for a role. I was chosen. And the thought made my heart pound. Not for fame, not for recognition, but because someone like Jackson had made a decision that revolved around me. I had been a face in an advertisement, a viral sensation, a girl with no experience, and yet, here I was, someone's choice. I didn't understand what that meant fully yet. I didn't know what came next. All I knew was that my life had shifted in ways I couldn't imagine. And as I looked forward, the story felt far from over. I was about to learn that some choices were more powerful than dreams. That some moments mattered more than recognition. That some people could change everything by simply believing you belonged, even before you believed it yourself. And in that quiet understanding, I felt the first stirrings of a story that had only just begun.